I am Chris Brand, I was playing Italy.
All right.
I'm Brandon Fogel, I was playing Russia.
Don Glass, I was playing Turkey.
Tim Jones, I was France.
John Gramala, I was playing England.
All right. So you asked for the pleasure of giving the overall recap.
So this is a could have been a draw. And as we were looking it up, Eddie asked us. Eddie just said to us, who was Germany.
Eddie Bersanes, Germany. Okay.
Said to us to figure out the details and let him know if he needed to change anything. And in the last turn, he moved off the line and let.
Because he was holding Munich.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And Berlin. And supported correctly. And his reasoning that he gave was because we had gone away and talked without him, which we felt that he'd asked us to do. So
a failure then of communication. Yeah, that's too bad. Okay. So it was when Eddie walked off the line that finally it cracked and you got across to your 19. All right. So let's start with the England, France, Germany. What went on with you guys? So who wants to talk about that? You want to talk about that first?
In
the opening game.
I was the one person standing at the board in 01. I look over, these two talk for like 6 minutes. I write London to English Channel. I tell everybody on the board, hey, I'm going to be fighting a long war in the West. Please come to my aid if you can.
Okay.
I was at 2 by 03, and I was like doing shit like inviting France into the North Sea, like supporting that move. I was basically trying to like mercenary the shit out of anyone. I was offering Eddie Brisson support into the Russian Norway, like any doc that I could get to anyone.
Tap dancing as fast as you can to stay relevant.
Yeah.
And it looks like you did, because you came back. You were up to 7 at centers at one point, right?
Yeah, I was up to 7 centers, and I felt like we were sort of building a line against the Italian, who was a serious threat. And I believe the French sort of told me that they were bored.
It was the turn where he asked me to support him into the 3rd supply center, which he previously promised me. I started to think.
Which is the time when I'm at 6 centers and he's at 7.
All right, so
that's
it's funny. It's funny how that makes a difference, right, to some people at some point, and you've got to be able to read that. All right, so Russia, how did it go in the early game for you?
Fuck, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, right.
The early game.
1 minute to the deadline.
So
you and Don as RT, yeah.
So Don and I talked about an RT, and we opened in 01 with an RT in mind.
Bounce in the black.
Bounce in the black.
Okay,
at the end of 01, I managed to sneak into black.
45 seconds.
I let him do it.
We had a DMZ, so I got into black. I got into Sweden. Germany let me in, and he was stuck in Ankara and Constantinople. Couldn't build a second fleet on the Black Sea. So I built an army in
30
Sevastopol.
seconds.
Don, trusting me to not drive the knife in, built a fleet Smyrna. And Austria and Italy were both on board with taking Turkey out. So.
Oh, and he did go out in 1903, end of 03.
Austria died at the same time because he made a mistake.
Yeah, that was Tony Prokes. So you were thinking it was an RT.
5.
You were never really thinking it was an RT, because in the fall of 01 you went to the Black Sea and then built 7.
Yeah, all 3 of the people in the West were, in the East rather, were willing to work with me.
Okay.
So I thought that's judged by the 3 of them. I thought, getting Turkey out of the way and then sandwiching Austria was a reasonable strategy.
So you went to 7 in 02. And then stayed at 7 for 5 years.
5 years.
Right?
There was
and
disorder in
did you change dots, or were you just kind of like on a line and nobody was really helping you?
There was some dot changing, especially up in Scandinavia.
Right.
There were, I think, 3 separate years where I was poised to get an 8th build and got stabbed by one person or another.
So you were one dotted on one side when you were gaining on another, and so you could never, and you always had to scramble.
Correct.
Okay.
And I had a bizarre misorder at the end of 1902, where I was supposed to convoy an army into Ankara, and instead I convoyed it into Armenia.
That's not a dot, I think you'll find.
I actually wrote this, Armenia supports Romania to Armenia.
There's a famous story of Andy Marshall as Russia, and his spring 1901 order was Fleet Gulf of Bothnia to Sweden. His fall 1901 order was Fleet St. Pete South Coast to Sweden, and his spring 1902 order was Fleet Gulf of Bothnia to Sweden, and then England took St. Petersburg in the fall of 1902. So, yeah, worse has happened. All right, so now, Chris, did you run in on Austria right out of the gate?
No.
Okay, how did it go down?
Well, everyone in the East was very friendly. Italy was very friendly. No, but France was
Austria.
very friendly as well.
Okay.
I had lots of people I could work with.
I was almost in the East.
I actually let Russia decide what the target should be. I think. I think I might have expressed a preference for killing Turkey early, but honestly, I was happy to do whatever. Turkey was almost dead. Oh, I didn't want Turkish dots. I was talking to Austria. He was willing to give me like Greece with him take Turkish dots because I didn't want to be too far extended.
Sure.
Yeah, I think the turn that Turkey was definitely dead, I stabbed Austria for 3.
Yeah, you went from 5 to 8, and he went from 3. No, he went from 5 to 3 on that turn, and then you took 2 more from him. It looks like, and somebody else grabbed the last.
Basically, got all of his dots in 2 years, so that was quite nice.
At that point, when you were at 10, do you remember what your unit balance was, armies and fleets?
More fleets than France wanted me to have.
Okay.
It was fairly balanced most.
Because you then went to 13, right? You went
50-50.
10 to 13 in 1905 before you started getting pushed back a little.
Yeah, I don't even remember where those dots came from.
Okay. Do you remember what happened to?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I just kept the momentum going and
Okay.
started trying to take some Russian dots. The thing with France was generally very good. There was a little bit. We managed to avoid too much of the let's throw lots of fleets at each other and do nothing.
And then you built 2 more fleets than you said you would.
Yeah. This is true.
Guilty.
The whole unit balance that Chris was talking about.
There
Right.
was quite a fun turn actually where
I turned to Chris and I said, you know what? I think we should have a war. And he was like, yeah, okay. And it was just, the negotiation was very clear.
Very good.
friendly war.
What happened when they pushed you back? Right, they pushed you from that high of 13 down to 11. What was that? Just the whole board getting together, or?
I think that was my misorder.
Okay.
No, that was also us successfully finally coordinating.
Right.
I finally was about to go up to 8. I recovered Romania and I had a nice army set up in the south. I still had the fleet in the Black Sea. And out of nowhere, on my rear, Germany and England conspired to take Norway away from me.
The thing that made this a solo rather than like a
big draw.
Italy was that move. That was important. The stab of Eddie really early on, whenever that was. Because there was this.
Eddie is
there was an
as
FG going
Germany.
against
He was
England,
at
and that
7,
changed
and then
at
he
some
went
point.
6-3,
Yeah.
and that looks like that was
That was you as well.
England.
Eddie had sold out really hard coming after me. That was another thing that kept me from
okay.
So he had taken Warsaw and he had armies in Livonia and
Wow.
Prussia, fleet in Baltic, and I think he had a fleet in St. Petersburg as well.
Okay.
So, and then he got stabbed from behind by France, and England took 2 centers, France took 1, so he had to pull 1, and that saved me at that moment.
Sure.
So then he retreated, we took dots from behind.
So one of the things I heard before we started taping was that 4 different players said they were going to throw you a solo over the course of the game, and 3. Who was the 4th?
It was 4.
Did
You at one time, Russia at one time.
I was the first.
Yeah.
No, Eddie was the first.
Oh, was
well,
he?
no, he was maybe not the first to say a solo.
Was that 1902 that he said?
No, it wasn't.